Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we're going to take a look at the Mercury retrograde energies that close out 2023 and begin 2024. Mercury will station retrograde on December 12th at 8 degrees of Capricorn, traveling back to 22 degrees of Sagittarius, where it stations direct January 1st or January 2nd, depending on your time zone. So we'll be discussing the energies of this Mercury retrograde, and there are a few things I want to note here before we dive into the specifics of this particular energy. Now, you may recall that this year began with a Mercury retrograde, and it's ending with a Mercury retrograde. There's a very fascinating dance that Mercury does as it retrogrades. And what occurs through the patterns is that this Mercury retrograde in December begins at 8 degrees of Capricorn, which is where it stationed direct back in January 2023. Mercury tends to begin and end the retrograde phases where he previously left off. So, January 2023, Mercury stationed direct at 8 degrees of Capricorn, which is where he is retrograding now, traveling back to 22 degrees of Sag, like I said. And guess what? Next year, Mercury will station retrograde at 22 degrees of Sagittarius in late November 2024. So what I wanted to highlight here is that Mercury retrograde territory picks up where it left off previously. And it's this really fascinating cycle that basically covers all degrees of the zodiac, where we review, reconsider, revise, reprioritize, as well as relax and reflect with these retrograde cycles. And it basically gives us a heads up that, okay, during the next time that Mercury is going to be retrograde in Sagittarius, it will begin at 22 degrees of Sagittarius, which is where it leaves off in this cycle. So I wanted to throw that out there as a fun fact, as my son would say, fun fact around how Mercury always covers every degree of the zodiac. Now, every Mercury retrograde has the same basic advice that you've probably heard a million times, where it's important to slow down, check the details, know that things are going to change, plans are going to fall through, people are going to cancel, things aren't going to line up. You will need to reconfirm various particulars. You'll need to address things that you previously discussed. There will be perhaps more to review that you assumed was taken care of. There will be conversations that you'll have again with people where you thought, okay, we decided on this, but during Mercury retrograde, new choices come up or new options appear, or you have to go over something again. And all of this is typical, but it tends to be bigger during the holiday period, where you know that even if you have festive plans, things you're going to put on the calendar, arrangements are being made, all of that will need to be reconfirmed beforehand just to make sure that nothing was canceled, times were changed, flights were postponed or canceled, etc., and so on. So it'll be very important throughout December to make sure that what you're counting on is still actually happening and still in play. Now, the more specifics here is that this particular Mercury retrograde actually makes beneficial aspects to Saturn in Pisces and Jupiter in Taurus. So we have this going for us, meaning that when the plans change, when things shift, or when there's disappointment, there's going to be something else that connects and gives you that, oh, good, this is even better. I like this more. And it could even give you the sense of, well, I said yes out of obligation and I didn't really want to go. Or I said I would do something, but I don't have energy for it. I'm not sure I really want to see it through. So you could have something that feels like it saves the day. You could have plans shift that lead you to a better option. You could have something that comes up that you're thinking, do I want to do this or not? And you'll see through the course of developments that maybe you get a free hall pass to get out of something. But the bigger question here is to look at the intentionality of your communications. How often are you saying yes out of obligation? How much are you making plans out of expectation and the shoulds when your energy isn't there, when you really would rather not, and you don't want to go, or you don't want to buy a white elephant present, or you don't want to show up at an event? So this is where we really look at the intentionality of what we're saying, where we're giving our word to something or not, and if it's really in alignment with your truth and what you really want to put your energy towards. All of that is highlighted with Mercury retrograde in Capricorn and going back into Sagittarius. Capricorn is about what we need to take seriously, where we have responsibilities, where a part of you is aware that, okay, people need me to do this. They're expecting on me. They're relying upon me. There's a seriousness with Capricorn energy because we feel the responsibility and we feel a sense of being required to step up. I feel too like this Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, though, is going to give you opportunities to check in with your truth. And that's especially true as Mercury then retrogrades back into Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is very different than Capricorn. And if you've listened to this podcast for a while, you've heard me say it a million times, every astrology sign is very different from the one before and after it. There's always a significant energy shift. So as Mercury is very serious, focused, and dedicated in Capricorn, the energy going back into Sagittarius reconnects you to a truth, to a motivation or inspiration, also connects you to more possibilities. So this is going to be a cycle where perhaps you're doing things because you know you need to take care of it, especially a year end, right? We always have things where like, I got to get this done by the end of the year. I need to close out these books. I need to look at my plans. I need to stay focused on where this is going. How am I steering this ship? Or what is on my plate that I need to finish up and take care of? As Mercury goes back into Sagittarius, which occurs on December 22nd, there's a return to the openness of options and possibilities. There's this lightheartedness of Sagittarius where you see, oh my gosh, I've been taking this too seriously, which is Capricorn, and that's needed at times. But Sagittarius is more about the fun and how can this be more enjoyable? What can I do differently that is actually a better fit for what I really want? Where yes, I know I need to be an adult, I need to be responsible, but what gives me life? What makes me happier? What is more uplifting? And so the return into the Sagittarius energy is a reconnection. And how can I see it differently? How can I open this up into a broader vision, or even open it up to something that I didn't see before? And so one of the ways that this Mercury retrograde is different is that Mercury is changing signs, which isn't the case during every Mercury retrograde phase. Now, that also happened back in August when Mercury stationed retrograde in Virgo and went back into Leo. So we're in a phase of Mercury stationing retrograde in an earth sign to go back into a fire sign, the preceding fire sign that has the energy, the growth, the excitement, that has an opening into let's go for it, let's do it. And the earth sign is the practical application of how. The earth sign is connected to the limitations, the boundaries. How is this realistically going to happen? So with this particular Mercury retrograde, there's something that is coming up in the Capricorn areas of your chart. Again, the station is happening at 8 degrees of Capricorn, and it's asking you to stop, take a beat, relax. Don't take it all so seriously. Assess what is essential, what's necessary. And then the energy goes back into Sagittarius, which opens it up into what do you really want to experience? What do you really desire? what is really coming up for you that is more of a passion and something that you want to experience rather than something you thought you had to do. Now, when we look at the energies of Sagittarius and Capricorn, these can be applied to what we go into education to learn so that we can get a job. So Sagittarius is associated with higher learning, education, university, grad school, technical schools, anything that you do that gives you more expansion into that profession or into that industry. Then you learn in Sagittarius, which you apply in Capricorn. And Capricorn is the job you get after going to school for that degree or that area of knowledge. And Capricorn then is where you have the job interview and you determine your salary or you negotiate. You land the position that applies the knowledge you gained in Sagittarius. And so that is a simple way of understanding how the progression of astrological energies work. So here we have this Mercury stationing retrograde in Capricorn, where maybe you've got a few feet in the door and you're like, wait, what am I doing? Is this what I want? Was I just going along with something because I thought it would have a certain level of security, which is Capricorn? Am I doing something because of the pay, because of the position, the title, the notoriety? Am I doing something for others that isn't connected to my true passion or what I'm really interested in or what I really want to dedicate my energy to? So this is where we are reviewing some of our bigger life decisions. And I would say this directly applies to what you want to do in 2024. Where perhaps you're thinking, okay, I've got to get this done so that next year I can do ABC. This Mercury retrograde could bring up some things that you're realizing is too heavy. It's sinking your energy. You're not really that into it. You're doing it because of something you thought you would gain, especially in the long term, which is also Capricorn. You land the job so that you can put in the hard work and get the raise and move up through the hierarchy. And then maybe you're realizing, I don't want that path at all. That isn't really where my energy is the strongest. And maybe it's even because of generational influences, right? Where your parents did this, or a brother or older sibling did this, or you were always taught that if you go to school for this, you'll land this kind of job. But the world is very different now, and there's so many more opportunities. There's so many other ways to use your skills or to do something that really connects and really calls to you. Sagittarius brings you back to that call of your soul, that desire to have an experience or do something because it lifts up your energy. It expands your energy. It gives you life. It's something that's typically exciting and interesting and curious. So what we're going to be reassessing during Mercury retrograde is looking at what's in front of you and what do you want to shift into more of that truth frequency that maybe was overlooked, or you were focused on something that took you away from who you really are. And this Mercury retrograde is going to work with you more personally if you have planets or points between 22 degrees of Sagittarius and 8 degrees of Capricorn. Because when Mercury retrograde goes across, especially any of your personal planets being Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, there is a reconsideration, a more personal reprogramming of whatever you've been contemplating and thinking about, where you've seen options, where you've seen possibilities, or where you thought you were obligated or stuck on a certain path or direction. So Mercury retrograde is more personal when it's conjunct any of your personal planets. Now, it's also something you strongly feel when it is opposite or square any of your personal planets. And it also brings up more for you to be aware of that takes you beyond what you previously saw or considered. Mercury is the mind. It's our perceptions, what we think about, what we focus on, what we discuss, how we communicate. It's our mental faculties and our cerebral processing, and how that then forms our beliefs, our opinions, what we think is possible in the world. So you could have this part of yourself that is more in the Capricorn expressions of what's the point of this? What is this going to accomplish? What results are going to come about from this information, this path, this communication? And then the energy in Sagittarius is much more open and free-spirited. There's a restlessness. It's even non-committal, where you're like, yeah, I don't know where this is going to go. I'm just going to stay open to it. I just want to enjoy it. I'm going to be here for the experience and what I'm learning, and I'll figure out the consequences later. That's also part of Mercury and Sag. So this is important to understand because this energy is going to be very active in the collective, as well as more pivotal for some people, where they're going to have a change of direction, a change of plans. And if it's not you, it could be someone in your world, someone in your life where you're like, okay, we're counting on you to do this. And they're like, yeah, actually, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm retiring, or I'm going to go off in another direction. I've decided I no longer want to take care of this. I don't want to manage this project. I don't want to focus on these details. I want something that gives me more freedom. So people are going to be stepping away from what they have in front of them. And granted, that's typically the case this time of year when people are on holiday, right? And they're like, circle back with me in January, or we'll talk about that early next year. That's going to be a very strong message during this Mercury retrograde. So adjust your expectations accordingly. Expectations, by the way, are connected with Sagittarius, where we have expectations of people, of our lives, of ourselves. We have expectations built into what we want to happen. This is a time to look at those expectations and release them, to not overly focus on them, to not be overly attached, because expectations are predetermined disappointments. Expectations are predetermined disappointments where someone doesn't do something and you're disappointed in them, or maybe you apply judgment, or maybe there's a sense of, well, that wasn't the right way to handle that, or that isn't the best decision you could make. All of that is connected here to these Sagittarius energies. And we can either release them and be like, okay, that's their choice, that's their free will, or some people will double down and judge it harder, or get up on a soapbox and tell you why that's wrong or why you shouldn't do that. And this also brings in how choices are tied to the future and where you're going. So there could be even these exchanges or conversations between archetypal adults and teenagers, where someone is telling you you should do something because it's better for your future. Or you could be the person giving that message to literally your teenager or your child about something they need to do, they need to take care of. It's time to get a job. It's time to earn your own way. You know, you really should be looking at the long-term consequences of this, this, and this. And all of that is valid. But during this Mercury retrograde, it's not going to be heard. It's not going to be taken in. People aren't going to be listening to what's going on or the messages others are trying to tell them, because this is an energy of, I'm going to have my own experience. I just want to do things my own way and at least have the process of learning in some capacity. So I feel like this Mercury retrograde is going to be interesting in terms of what we can release our expectations on and who we can release our expectations of. So there is a theme of acceptance, accepting people's choices or decisions or what they are thinking through, what they are processing, that could be surprising. Now, as I mentioned, there are a lot of transits and aspects occurring with this Mercury retrograde, because Mercury will be making beneficial trines to Jupiter in Taurus and beneficial sextiles to Saturn in Pisces. So we have support here. There's something that you're meant to trust. You're meant to see it through. And the Jupiter retrograde in Taurus trine is going to show you what can come about because of that information or idea. So I'm going to go through the dates here of these transiting aspects. And there's quite a few. So I'm going to cover them as they unfold throughout the month of December. So December 2nd Mercury in Capricorn sextiles Saturn and Pisces at 1 degree, and then trines Jupiter retrograde in Taurus at 6 degrees on December 7th. So before Mercury stations retrograde, there's beneficial information, input, something perhaps inspiring that you want to achieve. You want to put energy towards, you want to experience it. Then Mercury stations retrograde on December 12th. December 12th at 8 degrees of Capricorn, and there's a pause. And it's like, okay, let me think this through. How is this going to happen? How would I follow this? Is this in alignment with my goals and what I want to put energy into for the long term? Then we begin the retrograde process where Mercury then reconnects with Jupiter retrograde in Taurus at 5 degrees, December 18th. And this is where both planets are retrograde. So there's something brewing inside of you. There's something you're sitting with and you're like, okay, if I want to make this happen, let me just look at the practical elements that need to be in place. And because both planets are retrograde, you could even feel a rising motivation, a rising sense of, yes, I know I really want this. I know this is true for me. I feel like it can happen. It just isn't quite the right time. And that's important to note about the December energies. You could have the idea, the vision, you could have a sense of where it's going and what you want, but there's some kind of universal pause that we're meant to trust. Then the Mercury retrograde sextiles Saturn in Pisces again at 2 degrees of Pisces on December 21st, before making a conjunction to the sun on December 22nd. And this is the solstice. So right around the solstice, December 21st, December 22nd, that Mercury retrograde in Capricorn is talking to Saturn and the sun in Capricorn. So it's serious. We're really thinking it through. How much do I want this? What am I willing to put into it? How can I really commit to this? Again, internal processing. When Mercury is conjunct the sun brings in its consciousness, its warmth, its light, and shines a light on something that wasn't previously seen. So more information can come through. And perhaps this is a revitalization of, yes, I want this, or maybe I don't know, maybe not so much. I'm going to put it on the back burner. So during the solstice, this Mercury could feel like there's a lot on your mind. You're choosing, you're sitting with something, you're thinking it through. And to be fair, you could be overly thinking. You could have mental fatigue if something is weighing on you. Then Mercury re-enters Sagittarius, December 22nd, right after that conjunction to the sun in Capricorn. And that's where Mercury is like, okay, I don't want to think about this anymore. I just want to go have fun. I want to enjoy this. I want to open up the energy, and I don't want it to be so serious. And that could actually be a welcome break. There could be something that shifts your perspective in a new way. A new communication comes through, a new option, a new possibility. And then you're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'm just going to have more time with this. Let me just consider it through different angles. And I'm not going to make a choice yet. Then on December 24th, Mercury retrograde is conjunct the Galactic Center at 27 degrees of Sag. And when Mercury, the messenger planet, is working with the Galactic Center, there's incoming streams of messages, of possibilities that could even take time to land, to really be conceptualized. Now, keep in mind, Mercury is the fastest moving planet and it's the smallest. So there's something here where you could even have overwhelm around what to choose or what to do, because now it feels like, wow, there's a lot that could happen here and I don't know what it is. This I don't know energy is also strong December 26th, where Mercury is then squaring Neptune in Pisces at 25 degrees. And it could just feel like, I don't know what to choose. I give up. I don't want this to be on my plate. I don't want to keep thinking about it. And one thing that exists between both Sagittarius and Pisces energy is that it opens us up in a way that takes us out of the everyday, lifts us out of the mundane, removes the day-to-day, and broadens our horizons, broadens us outside the time-space continuum. And this can be so creative. This could be more expansive to the point where you're no longer grounded in reality, which is the case when a planet squares Neptune. It could also feel like you're tired and you just want a nap. And it's by trusting that energy and going into meditation and dreams and other realms that you allow more answers to stream through, more ideas, more options. And this could also be something that alleviates any of that intense mental burden. So this puts Mercury into the higher realms where you release your expectations on perfection. Release your expectations on the details. Release the expectations on it has to look like this. I see it as actually opening up the mind to more of the miracle matrix energies, where a miracle matrix is where anything's possible. But are you willing to open up into that? Because that could also be something that feels uncomfortable. It could feel like, oh my gosh, if I don't have a grip on this, if I don't know the plans, if I don't know the details, it's all going to fall apart. And I don't know if I can trust even more. So this will be a time at the end of December where you could feel like I'm really trusting here. I'm trusting big time. I'm having a lot of faith in something that I don't know how it's going to come through or show up. Mercury will then make a conjunction to Mars in Sagittarius on December 27th. And so this is where you could have frustration. You could even feel like, I really want this to go. I really want this to move forward. But it's still squaring Neptune and Pisces, which is removal and dissolving. So it will be important to manage the energy at the end of December, where you're going to need to perhaps physically move, do the exercise, do the yoga, go for runs or walks, or do something so that your mind and body are in harmony instead of fighting each other, instead of thinking that I'm just going to bully my way through this or push my way through this. This is about, no, I'm going to just honor this big energy, work with it, and know that this too is going to move through me. Then after Mercury conjuncts Mars in Sagittarius at 24 degrees, Mercury is on his own and he doesn't make any other exact aspects as he continues forward and stations direct January 1st or January 2nd, depending on your time zone, at 22 degrees of Sagittarius. And when Mercury stations direct, the planet is moving very slowly and hangs out at that degree point for a few days. So in fact, Mercury is going to be at 22 degrees of Sagittarius December 29th until January 6th. So if you have planets or points around 22 degrees of Sagittarius or 22 degrees of the mutable signs, even 22 degrees of the fire signs, this is where Mercury stations direct and is regaining his energy, his strength, his inspiration, because now he's been reprogrammed through these interactions with the other planets. Those aspects, by the way, are working with outer planets. So there's something bigger taking shape, something bigger forming that Mercury can't see yet and doesn't know what to do with it all, but can feel the energy rising. And then as Mercury moves direct again in early January, we'll meet up again with a square to Neptune in Pisces, January 8th and 9th. And ideally, this is where Mercury is more trusting and intuitive and allowing things to flow through, allowing the energy to just move through without grasping onto it, When there's strong mutable energies, it's just about allowing things to change and shift and evolve, going with the flow, allowing things to just be what they are instead of thinking you've got to wrestle it into shape or you've got to hold on tight. No, there's a trusting element here that now you're ready to open up to something because you've been allowing the flow to move through the mind. And, our minds are designed to think about things, obviously, right? We're designed to focus on specifics or details, consider the plans, really look at what's the intention, what am I getting done here? Sometimes that mind can be very focused on the end result, but this energy of Mercury and Sag squaring Neptune and Pisces is opening up to universal flows. Again, that miracle matrix of what if anything is possible in this situation? And I've been too focused on one particular outcome. And that's certainly part of what we learned during our spiritual ascension is I've just got to stay open to more of these universal energies that I don't control, I don't manage, and to trust that they are working with me as we co-create what could happen next. Then Mercury is conjunct the Galactic Center, January 11th. Again, another incoming stream of options and possibilities beyond what you've maybe considered before. And I feel like this first half of January, after Mercury stations direct, then interacts with Neptune and the Galactic Center, it feels like this Mercury is really more in tune with trusting what is best for your energy, even when you don't know the how, even when you don't know if it's going to work, even if you don't know where it's going. There's something where this Mercury could be like, I'm just enjoying the ride. I'm living for this moment. I'm aware that things could happen in multiple directions, but I'm good with today. I'm good with what I'm feeling and experiencing right now. And this is how Mercury learns in Sagittarius, learns to be in the experience, learns to be more trusting, also can take the wisdom of past experiences and see how you've grown through them. What has happened when you've trusted yourself? What's happened when you've trusted the energy or where you feel inspired to do something? How has that played out for you? That could be very encouraging. Then Mercury re-enters Capricorn January 14th, and Mercury makes a sextile to Saturn in Pisces January 17th, and January 19th trines Jupiter, now direct in Taurus. So I feel like when Mercury re-enters Capricorn January 14th and interacts with Saturn and Jupiter in a beneficial manner, something clicks. Something is like, okay, yes, this is more concrete. This is a good option. This is what I want to focus on and move towards. And chances are it's going to look very different than what you initially thought in December. And it could be something that elevates you, where you could feel like, wow, I trusted this energy. I didn't commit to anything until Mercury re-entered Capricorn, and then it lined up in a way that was quite effortless. It has grace to it, and it could even feel stronger and more concrete. So essentially what we're looking at here is that it's going to be the middle of January when plans might really come through and stick. That would be a better time to make decisions, sign contracts, take plans forward. That's also a good time to look at your plans for 2024. So again, January 14th through January 19th is where it could be more evident of the best choices to make and directions to go. January 21st, Mercury clears his shadow and is no longer in the retrograde territory. So it could even be that the holiday break and time off works for your advantage. where it is a good time of the year to just sit with some things, allow it to open up. Don't feel the pressure to make decisions if you don't have to. Now, I know that isn't always the case. There's things you've got to stay on top of, you've got to manage, or you have to make sure that it is in alignment and moving forward. But this energy feels like we're going to have room to breathe, to have some fun, to let loose, to get out of any anxiety or mental spinning. It could also feel like you're really trusting more of what is correct for you without following that strict Capricorn energy of I've got to do it because other people expect it of me, or I have to do it because I expect it of myself. Are you creating those expectations and commitments from something that's outdated, that you've outgrown? Are you doing something because you thought it was for a particular outcome or result that you're realizing, yeah, I really don't care about that anymore. I really don't want that anymore. I thought I did. I thought it was so important. And now it's just meh. Now it's just blah. Now it isn't really something that I really want to take forward. So again, people are going to change their minds. They're going to have a new direction, a new idea. This will certainly pertain to matters at work. So in the Capricorn archetypes, we show up with a level of professionalism and responsibility. It's where we need to trust what is correct for us and be in our integrity. Capricorn is also where we earn respect and we give respect. And this is a Mercury retrograde where things are going to shift and even big announcements are going to be made. People retiring, people leaving, people no longer wanting to be a part of a team or a project, people saying, yeah, no thanks, I'm actually going to go in a different direction altogether. So this will affect energies in your professional world. This is where there could be new promotions, of course, where then maybe you rise to a new position or you get the job you've been waiting for because somebody else left or because there's an opening and the universe said, it's your time, your number's up, you're called up, and then you step into a new role. So definitely a lot of turnover and changeover in our professional worlds with this energy. And of course, that typically happens this time of year anyways. But because this Mercury retrograde works favorably with both Jupiter and Saturn, I think there's going to be beneficial developments that come about that have even been a long time in the works. You know, something you're like, oh, I really hope this will happen, but it's not likely. And then the universe shows up and says, actually, here you go. This is yours. It has your name on it. One other transiting aspect of this Mercury retrograde is that as Mercury goes back into Sagittarius, it trines the North Node in Aries. And so that is positive developments possibly happening behind the scenes that you don't hear about, but people are talking about it, discussing what about this, how about that, and maybe even a sense of this is the perfect person to do this, like the perfect person for this job, for this position, for this role. The trine to the North Node in Aries is also action-oriented, where you could be taking on something, putting you in a leadership role, putting you in something that advances you in some capacity. So there is a leveling up here with this Mercury retrograde as we look at all these transiting aspects. And there's a lot of them. So when Mercury makes a lot of aspects, there's a lot still going on, but maybe you're not seeing it right away. There can be a delay in hearing about it. Things can be postponed, right? People are still talking about it, or they're simply offline. They're offline enjoying time with their family, or they're traveling, or they're really taking a break. And then they come back and realize, yes, this is what we need to do. And that could be something you're feeling for yourself. So overall, this Mercury retrograde is putting you into higher alignment with what you truly want, not what you think you had to do. There is this universal push to come back to what have you learned? What have you accumulated along the way that you really know about yourself? But maybe you've pushed it to the side, or you thought, I have a dream. I don't know if that dream's going to be reality. I don't know what to do with that dream. And the universe comes back and says, actually, not so fast. That dream has your name on it. That option is still available to you. That possibility can still manifest. So yes, I am talking about this Mercury retrograde through a more positive lens. I know it works with each of us differently. There are some people who will have a more challenging experience with this Mercury retrograde. If they're really wanting details, specifics, if they're really attached to one thing, again, going back to expectations, going back to also how well you trust when the energy opens up. And some astrology signs have a harder time with that. For example, when there is a lot of Sagittarius and Pisces energies, the opposite signs of Virgo and Gemini can be struggling and can be like, no, I need to know the how. This is stressing me out. It's overwhelming. What are the particulars? What do I count on? And this energy is asking you to open up to what you don't know and how well you're able to trust what you can't see yet. And then again, in mid-January, things really will click, be more evident, more apparent, and even be much better off because of the retrograde. So I hope that gives you some helpful insight into how to navigate this Mercury retrograde energy, and where you can release control, the perception of control, where you can be more aware of your expectations and to let them go, and where you can dig in to trusting something that isn't fully formed until perhaps the middle of January. It can also be a good time to reassess what you're planning on in 2024. And if that's something you are looking at, be sure and check out the 2024 Soul Growth Astrology Program, which will show you what energies are happening for you in the year ahead as we examine the full main astrology of the year, including the Mercury retrogrades of 2024, Jupiter entering Gemini, Pluto moving into Aquarius, Sedna moving into Gemini, the 4 eclipses of the year ahead, and so much more. So do check that out. It's still on sale for a limited time when you use coupon code 2024, and it gives you a heads up into what would be best for you to plan in the year ahead and how your energy is supported. So I'll put the link below the podcast here. Wishing you a beautiful journey through December and into January. I hope this Mercury retrograde supports you in where you're going next and what is true for you, and also reminds you that anything is possible as you tap into the miracle matrix frequencies of the universe. So thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back every Wednesday and Monday for a new podcast episode as we journey through these energies together. For those of you who have asked, you can find all of my current programs and courses at mollymccord.online. And I hope you'll check out my YouTube channel as well, where you'll find tons of free content in my playlists. You could spend hours learning about your astrology chart for free on those YouTube playlists. So do dig into that and check that out. Wishing you a beautiful Mercury retrograde experience, and I look forward to connecting with you again here soon.